Everybody, welcome to the Tuesday Facebook Live. And today I wanted to speak to you about how to be really clear to your intended audience. And the reason I'm saying this is that if you're not really clear to your intended audience, especially if your audience doesn't know if you're speaking about them or some problem that they have, they're not going to respond. When we speak or when you write something, you want to attract potential clients or customers, right? And so they have to really understand what you're saying. And I see so often people getting caught up in this. I don't know. Sometimes somebody tells them about this formula and they get caught up into the formula, or whatever it is, or they just get caught up into their own ideas about things, and it just gets very convoluted, and then it's not clear. So some of it is because it's convoluted, some of it's because the terminology isn't clear, or you're trying really hard not to give too much away, so it just becomes very mysterious. Whatever it is, it doesn't attract people because they don't understand what you're talking about. I saw somebody recently write up something that actually sounded like it had like a hidden political religious agenda, and it ended up being creepy because she couldn't, she talked about like what's really going on, this kind of stuff. It sounded like conspiracy theories to me, so it was just creepy because she wasn't really saying what she would say to a person naturally, and that's actually a good way to test what you say, is to actually say it to somebody and ask them, do you understand what I'm talking about? What does this make you think about? To actually, as if you're just speaking to somebody, instead of writing some kind of formulaic and formal type of statement for your messaging. So one of the things are, being very clear about, I'm looking at some notes here, who that audience is. So it's a really good idea to say something like, I help life coaches, or I help, this group of people, or I help women who are struggling with poor health and but have not been able to get help from doctors, or I help new entrepreneurs who are just starting starting their business. Whatever it is, if you can be really clear about your audience, then that's like half the battle. There's an expression, well begun is half done. If people know that you're talking to them, then they're going to perk up and listen. Now, maybe it won't be what they need at the moment, but you will have gotten their attention, and the whole purpose of your messaging is to get attention of the right people. So that first thing is just to be very clear who your audience is. Okay. The second thing has to do with terminology, and so I see people sometimes using expressions that an ordinary person wouldn't really understand. I'm trying to think of some examples, but they might have to do with with health. So health is a good example because people get confused about this. So somebody will. I had a client actually who had a thing about people who I help people with a leaky gut, and I explained to her that those people often don't know they have a leaky gut. That's what she's assuming that they have if they have certain symptoms. So you have to talk about the symptoms that people understand. Maybe they have problems with digestion. Usually it would be some kind of thing, however you want to describe it. But if you're solving a certain health problem, then people don't know they have that's the cause of their symptoms, then they're not going to respond. So that's a good example of like some kind of terminology that's not clear to people. I had somebody else who had a really good little worksheet to help people make ethical decisions. And I said, what's their problem? Why are they going to pick that up? She says, well, they don't have a system to make ethical decisions. And I said, but they don't know that. They are not aware that they don't have a method for ethical decisions, or even that there is such a thing. Okay, they might be aware that they keep on getting into trouble, or they keep on having bad relationships, or they keep on not succeeding with people, having, it's kind of like bad relationships or something like that. Things that would be the result of making non-ethical decisions. But they don't know that there's such a thing as a way to make ethical decisions. And so you have to go by the problem, what they are thinking of. Okay, so those are some examples of using terminology that people don't understand. That's from your perspective, but not from their perspective. Another thing I think is really important is to be clear about where you stand, especially if there are different, whether it's political or religious or something like that. Sometimes it's not clear to people, and people have certain strong opinions about that kind of thing. And so, for example, I have a couple of clients who are, I would call them in the Christian space, and they sometimes don't use the word Christian, and I keep on explaining to them that if you want to attract people who want a solution based on Christianity, you have to use that word there, because there are people who don't want that. And so you can't bring them in and then have them see that that's what you're doing. So kind of, where you stand, and this also, could be a political thing. People take sides, and so they have to kind of understand where they have to know where you stand. And finally, sometimes people struggle with describing their solution because they don't want to give too much away, and they just say, I'll just help you make more money or something like that. And it's way too vague. So one of the ways of dealing with that is to have some kind of framework. And I'm going to give you an example here. So, for example, I do help people with messaging, and I help them in this kind of 5-step framework, not all of which is in all products, because some of it involves, more work individually sometimes with people. But I start with self-understanding, so I help life coaches understand the framework that they use to coach. Is like, this is my framework, but I help them. So life coaches is a group of people that I like to work with, because what they do is often kind of vague, and it's hard to describe, and so it's hard to attract clients. So I help people, life coaches, understand what they do, what their framework is, what steps they give people, so that clients can understand what they're doing. So that's an example. My second one is validation. So getting, I help them pull together results they've gotten for clients so that they can use testimonials and results to gain credibility. And the third one is the actual messaging that comes out of the self-understanding and even some of that validation step to see how clients think about what they do. And so I help coaches create their unique selling propositions called a USP, and it describes the practical, concrete results they can get for clients, so that clients can see that this is something I really need. I have to do this. It's not just something it would be nice, but it's a must-have. And then when I work further with people, I help them test it, because it's not just a matter of coming up with it and sticking with it. You really actually have to put it out there in the wild and see how people respond, and then sometimes tweak things. And testing saves time and money from using messaging that isn't effective, because people sometimes just stick with something for a long time even though it's not working. And then finally, marketing. I help coaches get their USP, that statement, their messaging out to the world. So, how do you do that? You do that by speaking, you do that by writing, you do that by partnering and having other people promote you, which gives you a little bit more credibility. You can do that with email marketing. So lots of different ways of doing it, and I help people with that marketing piece of it. So that's just an example of a framework, okay? Like I had this 5-step framework I have for helping coaches, and specifically life coaches, get more clients by bringing them through these various steps. And so that's a solution, okay? It's I'm not giving away my whole solution. People have to work with me because everybody is different. But it does show the steps that I take people through. So you have to say something about your solution, how you help people, because otherwise they won't believe you, is basically the thing. So anyway, I'm offering a kind of special thing, and that is if you put at least within the next few days of me doing this live, if you're viewing the recording much later on, I won't do this because I probably wouldn't see the comment, but if you put in the comments your USP, who you serve, the problem you solve, and your solution, little statement like that, then I will make comments on it. I'll help you make it more clear. Okay, bye-bye.